stream, but just, yeah, you're good. 'Cause I'm lagging like a motherfucker.
All right, what is going on, everyone, and welcome back to the Mets Weekly Podcast. We are live at this very moment on YouTube and on X to discuss the latest news and rumors all offseason long in Mets land. Before the holiday season begins, we've got plenty to talk about, plenty to get into, plenty to yell and scream and debate about. But before we do that, I want to remind everyone to subscribe to the Mets Weekly YouTube channel for weekly episodes of our show that are now recorded every Monday night, typically at 7 p.m. For those of you watching or listening on playback and you want to join the conversation in the future, make sure to turn on those post notifications to know when we go live. We also go live for breaking news, which we did go live for breaking news at 2 a.m. last night. So it's 24/7 coverage whenever news drops. That is very, very significant. As for everybody that's in the chat as of right now, we want to let you know we love reading your comments, your questions, your concerns, all of that great stuff. All of your thoughts about the team. If you feel like you're being ignored, you're not being ignored. We're just going to try to pull up as many as we can to keep the flow of the conversation going throughout the entire show. Some may be saved for viewer questions. You never know. Follow Mets Weekly on X and on TikTok for future content over there. And for audio listeners, make sure to follow us on all your favorite listening platforms to not miss the audio version of new episodes that go up at 9 a.m. the following day that these are recorded. So without further ado, let's get into episode number 107. We are finally back to our regularly scheduled program on Monday at 7 o'clock during the off season here. There is so much to talk about that I want to keep it as short and sweet as we can. Frank, you were not here for our stream last night, or technically earlier in the morning, if you want to be technical and be that kid at the sleepover that says it's tomorrow now. But when it comes to, SHAMANAH coming back, we'll get into that in a second. The Mets have been making moves. It has definitely come at volume. Let's just say that. Sometimes they're awake, sometimes they're asleep. But a lot of things happening behind closed doors. And as we get to the holiday season, maybe there's a gift underneath the tree or near the menorah or wherever, whatever holiday that you celebrate.
Oh, we definitely got a good present. I mean, I was not at the sleepover because I was asleep. And the Mets like to do moves while I'm sleeping. David Stearns is a night owl, I guess. That's the one thing I did like better about the Sandy regime, is that Sandy kind of operated under my hours. We both had like the old man schedule. So I did like that. But Stearns, you just never know when he's going to strike. And I think this one, the fact the Mets getting Manaea is not a surprise, but I think for me, like you guys were talking about, is kind of the way they did it. I mean, I think they did really well in both areas. I think years they did better than I expected, and AAV they did better than I expected. So you have to say, just all around, a job very well done, especially getting it done in December. I feel like with a deal that seems this friendly, I wonder if it might have got done like kind of later in the offseason, because we know we're starting pitching. It's like teams could use starting pitching. We'll get to first base later on. That's something that's like, oh, I got my first baseman, I'm not involved now. You always feel like other teams can kind of jump in the starting pitching market. So, and you know what? There's deferrals in there. So I wonder if this might be one of those very few times where there could have been a hometown discount. I mean, because that's just kind of how pleasantly surprised I was with the results of how the deal came out when it comes to the Mets re-signing SHAMANAH.
Yeah, and then we also did add another pitcher earlier in the week as well, who could possibly be in a starting rotation. We'll get into that, all specifics and everything, all the breakdowns, all of the numbers. Andrew, you're also here. I don't even know why. You just exist, I guess. Nah, it's great to have you here, buddy. What's going on since we last talked? I think it was like, what was it? 14 hours ago. I don't know. It was quite a fever dream. Let's just say that. Mets just signing SHAMANAH at 2 a.m. wild. It was crazy. We started talking about useless shit, but when did we not?
Yeah. Again, a couple days to Christmas. Of course, I was doing last minute Christmas shopping, and then David Stearns is like, you know what? I need one more thing before, even though, we know he's not a Christmas lover, but he's like, you know what? I got to get one more for my Christmas lovers, and say, you know what? I got a little Christmas gift for you, and hey, maybe there's more. I doubt. I think now you'll go into a kind of rest period for at least a couple days, for everyone to enjoy the holidays, and then probably after the New Year's, you start seeing him fire back up. But who the hell knows? And it wasn't even just Shamania. There was like a bunch of news that decided, let's just drop it 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning, out of absolutely no necessity. But you know what? Hey, for us, like guys like me who don't sleep, it's like, oh look, Jacques signed. Oh yeah, look, Shamania signed. Oh look, there's other more stupid trades. All right, that works. But I know Frank again. I think Frank was like into hour 11 of your sleep schedule. You're like, why the hell are these guys signing this guy at 2 in the morning? But again, it is what it is. Stearns is striking, and we've seen reports that they're going to be opportunistic. Hell, 2 in the morning is pretty opportunistic.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I barely even sleep. My sleep schedule has been fucked forever. And I can work into the wee hours of the night as well. Night owl, that's something that I have in common, I guess, with Stearns. Another thing that we connect on because, Stearns is my guy and I will approve of everything that he does. Even if he does something illegal, I will 100% be behind him. We all know how I am. I'm very, very loyal. But as for some of you guys in here, Will White came in here early on, I think way before the stream starts, saying you guys need to stop reporting on these rumors. Every player you seem to report on goes somewhere else. Listen, I don't know what to tell you, man. We're just I guess it's a don't shoot the messenger type of thing. But I think that he's joking in regards to that. Darren Rivera coming in here saying shout out to Carson, Frank, and Andrew, your outstanding coverage of the New York Mets. Thank you very much. And saying a lot of people are complaining about Stearns, but he waited and got Manaea at his price and the number of years. Absolutely. We'll get into SHAMANAH as well as the rest of the rotation of what it's kind of shaping up to be and maybe where they go from here, because I do think that there are considerably maybe some other moves that they do make in that rotation to deep it up a little bit more, considering how we know that you can never have enough pitching. And I think that was proven as well by the other signing that they made that we will get into in a second. Christopher's T coming in here. Happy holidays. Absolutely. They start very, very soon. I think they will actually start immediately after we hit end stream here. So we're very, very close. So happy holidays to everybody here. Darren Rivera saying that as well. Daniel coming in here talking about some other stuff that we can put in here. Daniel in here, explosive as well. But I do want to get into the first signing that was made earlier this week, and I did go live for it because of the breaking news and the Major League news that I usually do. I went live with our buddies from Mets Central, Evan and Matt. We talked a little bit about the Griffin Canning signing and what it looked like at the outlook of the rotation. I think it shapes up a little bit more with Manaea back, and we will get into that as well. But one thing I will say, I definitely looked at this from face value, and it was a little bit more critical than I usually was. And then I got a little bit more deep into it, and I do want to talk about the Mets acquisition of Griffin Canning a little bit and kind of break that down for everyone. For those of you who believe that it was a great move, or some of you that thought it was a good move or thought that it was a terrible move, and we have no idea what we're doing. But one thing is that you can ask is, why would the Mets make a signing like this? It's because we Canning. I'm sorry. I really have apologized in advance for these awful jokes. But anyways, Griffin Canning. Particularly a 4-pitch mix, let's just say that. Seems like there is going to be things that are going to be reinvented with him, but he signed a 1-year, $4.25 or $4.25 million contract. Seemed like one guy that eats a lot of innings. There is some swing and miss stuff, but there's definitely more of that in more sequencing to control, less than command. Obviously, him allowing the 31 home runs in 209 fly ball events across 537 batted ball events, which was the 5th highest home run fly ball rate among starting pitchers last year. His fastball was absolutely crushed last year. A 376 expected weighted on base average, quality of contact. Left-handed hitters and right-handed hitters did have their fair share of where it was pretty much balanced. He was acquired by the Braves in exchange for Jorge Soler in October. He was non-tendered by Atlanta in November. Got hit hard a lot last year. Seems like there is going to be a little bit more of a reinvention. For those of you who don't know, with overall fastball shape, we talked about this before, VAA, vertical approach angle, we wanted hovering around 4, less than 5. And obviously from that certain release point, that high release point that he has, 16 inches of induced vertical break, paired up with the changeup that is apparently a hard changeup that can touch the low 90s, and slider, which it seems like he gets the most swings and misses on. I definitely think that there's going to be some things that are reinvented because I think that you also have to look at it from the fact that, well, there are adjustments that still need to be made, especially with the home run ball. Seems like he is able to throw strikes well, but he just keeps getting clobbered. Basically makes to do with the pitch shape and also just showing up with a ERA over 5. But the quality of contact, I feel like probably could be better in this regard. Again, with the signing of SHAMANAH and the addition to SHAMANAH, I think that this probably looks like more of a depth starter. He's getting paid like a reliever, so maybe he's looked at as a swingman in that regard. I don't know. But one thing I will do is apologize because I think there is more upside than I led on. Still not great. Still not the direction I would have gone in. I would have probably went into the Michael Lorenzen market because we all know how I feel about him. But Andrew, I'll start with you in regards to this one. I think we all knew that this was something that was a back end piece, but maybe there's something that Stearns sees here. Maybe it's something you're willing to trust with more added rotational depth coming in here this offseason. But Griffin Canning, what do you think?
Yeah, again, it's not exciting at all. Again, it's a depth move. It's fine. Again, now, especially like you said, with the Manaea signing, it's a lot easier for fans to kind of digest because again, they went out and got at least a guy at the top of the rotation. It's $4 million. It's a 1-year deal. Where if he's Adrien Hauser, he's DFA'd by mid-May, and it's $4 million. The Mets have paid more to send guys out of here. So again, it's depth to the rotation, and like you said, I would have preferred a Michael Lorenzen. I would have maybe preferred taking this $4 million in Montas to get a better guy, but that's not what they wanted to do. And Stearns is going with the approach of quantity instead of quality. And, I guess at this point, can you build it like we talked about this morning? Can you grab enough arms to survive to the trade deadline? And then if you need them at the deadline, get the improving and actually get the quality at the deadline instead of this depth approach of let's get just 10 mid to slightly below mid arms, and can you survive with that with a good offense? That seems to be the plan. But again, we've seen Stern with his pitching lab that knowing this pitching lab, he'll come in and throw a 3.2 ERA and be like I said, a elite swingman, or if he's the 6-man rotation, and you're getting value at $4 million, and maybe he gets a 3-year deal with somebody next year because it's what this team does now. So as much as again, it's not sexy, it's definitely not good as a content creator with all these bum ass signings, but again, with Stearns in the pitching lab, you can trust it. And again, we'll see if lightning strikes twice. But again, you have to kind of give a little faith, even though, again, you look at this guy, you look at the back of the baseball card, you look at the baseball savant numbers. They're really nothing sexy. But again, at least now you've seen Stearns do it. Obviously, Milwaukee, we saw it year 1. You can give him the benefit of the doubt. But again, this is not anything where it's like, I'm losing my brain cells like most people on Twitter. It's just whatever. If he sucks, it's $4 million. You see him goodbye in May, and you grab the next guy. And again, like we always says, it pushes Tyler McGill down in the depth chart. That's a good thing.
Yeah, that's also another thing that you can obviously look at, and we can see it from the entire pitching staff because now it's a little bit more formed up. But Frank, I'll go to you in regards to this one because here's how I kind of looked at it, and I talked about this a while ago when this originally happened. Andrew just mentioned Adrien Hauser. I don't really see it as really Adrien Hauser because I think that's more of like I don't know. It's more of like a matchup based type of thing of a guy who can get outs and eat innings. When it comes to a guy like Griffin Canning, more of this goes to the direction I feel like they went with Julio Teheran, something like that, because it's like a $4 million guy on the cheap here, and it has somewhat upside. I don't think it's a hard thing to cut losses on, but when it comes to Griffin Canning, there's going to have to be some adjustments. I will talk about those adjustments in a second. But what is your first grasp on this type of signing? Obviously, it's calmed down now with the Manaea stuff, but this type of addition to the rotation, a rotational piece, what are your thoughts on Griffin Canning coming over to the Mets?
Yeah, I mean, I say generally speaking, like when you're looking at starting pitching, just players in general, I always like trying to get the guys that are under 30. So, I mean, that was kind of the first thing that stood out to me is they said, okay, the Mets took a pitcher who is, age 28, and you feel like those guys are the ones that if you're going to do what we talk like these reclamation projects, but not necessarily high upside, but low risk kind of starting pitching signings. I think you want to go to the guys that are under 30 because they're not, fully developed. They haven't hit their peak quite yet. So you still have some time to maybe find some things you could tinker with to try to get the most out of them as a pitcher. But I feel like another thing that we always say is that like you can never have enough starting pitching in particular. And at $4 million, there's not too much risk involved. I mean, you guys talked about it last night, but this team is going to go over that $300 million threshold. I mean, that's going to happen by the time it's all said and done this offseason. So when you've already spent over $300 million, I mean, what does $4 million really matter in the grand scheme of things? And, you made another good point last night is that it feels like somehow, some way, there's always somebody hurt in the rotation by spring training or just along the way. A lot of times these things kind of shake themselves out. So you might find yourself in a situation where like, what, Griffin Canning, he doesn't really fit in, but then, someone goes down and Dave Pearson has another hip or something like that. And like, oh, well, we need someone to make some starts for now. And like Griffin Canning gets that done. But one of the other things that always happens, especially in the Northeast, you have rain doubts, you have double headers, you have guys get hurt, there's just other things that happen along the season. And we talk about just that ability to eat innings. I think it's going to be very valuable. And it really, like we've been saying, allows you to do that six-man rotation. We know it's very important for Senga, and based off what happened with Manaea at the end of the year, you feel like if you could just got him to push ahead a little further, just, if Manaea could just, if his arms would give out just a little later on, you would have been in a better position. And having a six-man rotation gives you a better chance of doing that, especially considering that he has the different arm slot for a full season now. So I think overall, I'm not going to flip out about it. Getting SHAMANAH helps me feel better about Griffin Canning, because if we were going into the season where it's like Montas was the 2 or Peterson was the 2, now I have some big time concerns, but it's like, okay, at least I have Senga Manaea. Like that's a decent start. And then, we'll see what happens like the Montas, Peterson, Holmes, and Canning. And I feel like if the Mets could maybe get one more starting pitching, and maybe we'll talk about that as far as being opportunistic, not just like, oh, we need another starter, just sign anybody. Like if there's a couple guys that if one of them they could land, okay, fine. And what that does is maybe that allows you to move Clay Holmes to the bullpen just in general. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, well, if Canning could be my sixth starter, then I could just leave Clay Holmes in the bullpen because, I mean, at this point, they haven't addressed the bullpen at all yet, which should not be a priority. They should kind of wait to the end, as we know, get the more important stuff done first. So that is at least another option. So, we talk about it. It gives them just a lot more flexibility. And I think the one thing that I get caught up on is like, how does Paul Blackburn fit into the scenario? Because I wasn't thrilled what I saw. I think spinal fluid leak is just never a good sign. Even if they say it's not a huge injury, it sounds bad to me. I wouldn't be paying that club option for Blackburn if it was up to me. I'd rather just kind of stick with Canning. He's younger, and just kind of see where that goes. So I don't know. I like we said, there's a lot of guys are going to be factored in. So I feel like, come spring training, a lot of guys have an opportunity. And, if one of these guys hits, and we talk about the 6-man spot, then, that's what's going to happen. Can he be a long reliever? Maybe. But I feel like, with that age, you just kind of see what you could find there.
Yeah, I mean, I look at two main possibilities. Obviously, I said that a guy like Canning will be making reliever type money. I think that he will be making a little bit over what Adrien got or something from us last year or something like that. I think that there's two possibilities here. And obviously, adjustments still need to be made because he was definitely getting tattooed like crazy, especially his fastball, giving up some of the most home runs in all of baseball as a back end rotation guy. I think that from the approach of a guy who is so deep into pitch design of bringing in Desi Drewskill, the guy from the Yankees that they brought in. I don't know if I said that name right, probably didn't, but I know that he's a big pitch design type of guy and kind of tweaking repertoires of things that can intertwine with things. If they're looking at him as a starter, I don't see any velocity coming up. I think that it's going to be based off of shape, kind of in a way that you look at it with Jose Budo. I do think that when you look at from, the standpoint of him in his secondary stuff, because of how ineffective his fastball was last year, I think that considering that he has like this secondary slider, obviously the changeup is probably going to have to be a little bit more usage if he's going to get a little bit more from his fastball, of course, when those two need to tunnel. When it comes to the slider, it seems like he gets the most whiffs at that. And it seems like it's more of a gyro type of thing. Gyro, slider, side spinning changeup usually is a call to add a cutter. So if that is the main thing that they're going to look at for him to be a possible starter, that is fine. When it comes to a reliever, considering the high arm slot that he does have, considering the swing and miss potential he does have, let's just say against, I guess, left-handed pitching compared to right-handed pitching, because we know that he can probably, actually, to be honest, I don't think he can jam hitters with a sinker, because the sinker isn't great at all. So he's probably going to have to go a little bit less on the contact management side because obviously it was not working for him last year, giving up as many home runs as he did. So I think there's probably going to be like a grip change in the fastball. I know that people have been talking about it, how he kind of adjusted a little bit as a hybrid from the Garrett Cole fastball grip, something like that. They're going to have to work around it in that regard. And they're going to have to tunnel these pitches a little bit more in order to prevent the home run ball as compared to what he's been doing his entire career. And I feel like that's probably, the irreversible, the interchangeable type of thing with Griffin Canning, where if he's good as a starter, he's good as a starter. If he's good as a reliever, he's good as a reliever. I'm more seeing the Paul Blackburn, and this is more of just in the SHAMANAH as we've continued to push guys down the food chain here. I think that Paul Blackburn, considering his injury history, considering what he's going to be making in ARB3, he's going to be a free agent. I think that this is the perfect time to slide him in as the Trevor Williams of the staff from 2022. When Trevor Williams, he wanted to start. He was, he was durable enough, and he saved our ass many, many times. He was mopping us up, and then also coming through in the middle innings if a starter gets knocked out early. And then he was able to get a starting job somewhere else in Washington the next year. So I think that that's the best way to kind of look at it, of possibly him being the Trevor Williams to ease him back in there. And then you also have all these other options who probably can play as a reliever or play as a starter, whether that is Clay Holmes, whether that is Griffin Canning, or maybe it is, Tyler McGill in that discussion. Maybe they try him out as a reliever, because we all know how it works out with a starter. I think that when you look at the back end of this rotation, past the Senga, Manaea, maybe Montas on a great day, I feel like you have starter ceilings and you have reliever ceilings with all of these types of pitchers, and they're going to try and figure that out. And they're going to address that, and they're going to hold it to the deadline, like Andrew said. Them basically surviving to the deadline and seeing what they need to do in the pitching department with any assets that they want to trade or something, because I do think that the Mets are going to be in that trade market for frontline guys at the trade deadline if they are to go in. I think that guy in San Diego that has been talked about this offseason is going to be on the table, possibly. Maybe the guy in Seattle that we have already talked about, that maybe he gets re-upped in trade talks, depending on if those teams are competitive or not, with them having expiring contracts or wanting to move money. But I do also want to get into the SHAMANAH stuff of the world because we did talk about it a little bit more in regards to that, but we didn't really talk about that much around the rotation. But if there's anything you guys else want to add on Griffin Canning, it's not really that big of a signing, obviously. It's more of just a wait and see thing. I think it's basically considering the value that he got, $4 million to be a starter reliever swingman like that, basically getting ARB 2 or ARB 3 money. It's definitely a decent bargain if you can get a quality, I don't know, sub 4.5 earn run average type of pitcher out of him. It's fine. It's not crazy. But, you know, let's just thank the all Holy Spirit that we are not in the Wilpon era, because Griffin Canning probably would have been our number 3 starter in that regard. So either way, speaking of number 3 starters and guys who can be great number 3s in the rotation, got paid like a number 3 rotation. We were live for this earlier. For those of you who did not catch it, let's give a little bit of a recap as the Mets have brought back SHAMANAH. SHAMANAH getting the qualifying offer in the offseason, pointing up to the sky, and I will make sure to do my diligence with that reference, even though I don't really know much about it. But again, as we all know, I am a man of a people. I am here to entertain. I am here for showmanship. So, well, everybody, acknowledge him. He's back.
Oh, let's go,
So,
Carson. Let's
right,
go. There you go.
I don't know anything
Good
about this
job.
reference, okay? But I'm doing it for the people here, okay? I have no idea what it is. But let's take a look at the Mets' current rotation situation with SHAMANAH back in the mix here for 3 years, $75 million, 3 years guaranteed. And the Mets getting him at the right price, which we will get into as well. Look at the contract details, $75 million fully guaranteed, and we do have some deferred payments. It looks like we are turning into the Dodgers, but of course, when we do it, it's a problem, and we should be arrested. A little bit over $23 million of deferred money, and that will be about $2.3 million per year on July 1st, which is deferred payment day on 2035 to 2044, not a real year, obviously, and that makes him now in total value, in total AAV, now tied for the 8th highest paid starting pitcher for 2025. And the Mets, of course, retain their draft pick from the rejected qualifying offer that Manaea received from us earlier this offseason, so they will not have to give up a draft pick. They don't lose a draft pick, and they retain him. And that will be the same case if they were to bring back Pete Alonso, which we'll get into in a second. Now, you look at the Mets' full-on rotational depth chart from the 40-man roster of everybody that's on there right now. Of course, Kodai Senga from the top, maybe a little bit of a question mark with the health, but we know what he's able to do when he is healthy. SHAMANAH slid in there as the 2, which he was pretty much the 1 for a majority of the season. Frankie Montas, if you want to put him there at the 3, maybe you put David Peterson in at the 3, whatever you want, whatever you might prefer. Clay Holmes was also brought in here to be a possible starter on one of those bargain deals. Paul Goldschmidt, yeah. Paul Blackburn, same Paul. You think they know each other? Paul Blackburn, injuries, and probably will be slowed down, but we'll see what they do. Griffin Canning, like we just said and talked about. Jose Budo is a starting option. He was a starter at the beginning of the season, converted to a reliever. We'll see what they do there. Tyler McGill still hanging out here. Who knows what's going to happen at this point? Max Kranick as well, still with the organization. And in pre-arb, could start, but was more looked at as a reliever last year, was on the postseason roster, was hurt for a majority of the year. Justin Hagenman, who I'm sure not many people know, they put on a minor league split deal and signed. He is on their 40-man roster. He could also start. And then there's also Christian Scott, who is a non-factor, but he is on the 40-man roster, so I had to mention him. He's out for the 2025 season, unfortunately, undergoing Tommy John surgery, including an internal brace, which pretty much rules out for the 2025 season. We will see, and we will most likely see him back in 2026, fully healthy, and hopefully with the promise that we have gotten from Christian Scott, that he continued to build from it and picks up where he left off when he is back. Also, some other potential MLB debuts that are not on the 40-man roster. We know Brandon Sproat, the number one prospect on pipeline for the Mets. Fireballer, struggled a little bit in AAA to end the season, stormed through high A and double A, dominated at those levels. We'll see if he gets his feet wet in the in AAA. Maybe we see a little bit of him in spring training. Blade Tidwell, if he can get his act together in AAA as well. He pitched very well in AA, that promoted to AAA, and really struggled. So we'll see what adjustments he makes. Maybe he's somebody who is a swingman. Maybe he's someone who makes a start. There's also Dominic Hamill as well, who's in there, but I think that most likely his time as a starter for now, I'd say that that time is over, and most likely he moves to the reliever with how wild he is. But looking at this overall look of the Mets rotational depth chart, you don't have the big names here, but you do have a lot, and I mean a lot, of arms. Andrew, I'm going to start with you. Tyler McGill right now, it seems like he is looked at, if I can do proper math and proper counting, starting pitcher 9 right now. Is that, I mean, I don't know. Is it good enough? They probably have to keep pushing him down the totem pole with how much this position gets injured. But what do you think about this current rotational depth chart, adding in SHAMANAH, Griffin Canning, and then, of course, replacing Severino and Quintana with the Clay Holmes and the Frankie Montas of the world? What do you think?
Yeah, it's not sexy. Again, it's not a top 3 in the National League. But again, like we've said, it's the way we're going to do it. They want to do a bulk and buy in bulk. And it's, again, you have a lot of options, and then not even, again, in counting, Sproat and the Hidden Blade as some other options. And again, and what I don't like to an extent, which again, it's not a guarantee, but now because you haven't gone out and got those bigger names, it puts maybe a little more pressure on Brandon Sproat to hit, where I would have preferred them to kind of attack that top of the market. So Brandon Sproat doesn't have to be, and again, he's not going to do this, but kind of have to have a similar to like a Paul Skeens, kind of like, okay, he needs to come up here and be a high arm. Like he needs to be a top front end arm, when you should not have that for a kid who's not, again, who's had a couple starts AAA and in a team that's supposed to be in win now mode. You shouldn't be banking on prospects. The prospects would just be giving you the icing on the cupcake. They shouldn't be the cupcake. But again, like we said, they'll add at the deadline if they need in the rotation. Is it good enough to survive? Yeah, because again, they have a ton of options, and that's where they want to do it. Again, we'll see with the bullpen. Obviously, if they make the bullpen better, who knows? Again, they can help out with it. But again, like we said, there's options as swingmen, the guys that can be in the bullpen. So again, am I taking it over the Phillies, the Dodgers, the Brewers, a lot of teams in the National League? No. But again, it's the strategy they want to take. And if they're going more of this, not money ball, the bulk thing, maybe you go a little more aggressive in the lineup. Maybe it works.
All right, well, Frank, I'll go over to you. Obviously, you didn't get to say much about Manaea at 2 o'clock in the morning. You were sound asleep, so I'll let you get into here now. The overall contract and everything, what this affects the rotation and everything. We definitely have quite a lot of options here for the starting rotation, even before any other moves that are made with the financial flexibility.
Yeah, I mean, I think to kind of go back to what I was saying before about how, like I said, pleasantly surprised I was at the deal, because you look at it from a couple different perspectives. So, I mean, when the offseason starts, you have a general number of what you feel you want to offer a player. But then as the offseason is developing, a market develops. So you see what the other starting pitchers get in that particular offseason, and then you make your move based off of that. And when I saw Max Fried get 8 years, I was like, oh boy, this starting pitching market is looking pretty ugly. I'm like, what are we going to do with Manaea? I saw Nathan Eovaldi, who's 2 years older than SHAMANAH, get a 3-year deal. So I was saying to myself, there is no way the Mets are going to get Manaea for 3 years. It's going to be maybe 5 or more. So that was the way that I saw it. And then when I saw that they got him for 3, I was like, wow, no way. And, the way I saw it was that if somehow you got him for 3, you had to bump up the AAV like crazy. It had to be like a Scherzer kind of deal, a Verlander kind of deal. But no, it got him for 25 with deferrals. So it makes it maybe down to like 21 or so. So I feel like no matter what, whichever way you want to go, if you want to say, okay, I want to go long term to lower the AV, I want to go short term so that I don't have to go for a lot of years. The Mets got the best of both worlds in this scenario, which I really didn't see happening with how the pitching market had developed so far. I still am very curious to see just what ends up happening with Corbin Burns. I just don't know what's going to go on there. I imagine someone was going to overpay him by now, to be honest. I mean, because we're starting to get like a little later on in the offseason to some extent, because a lot of guys have come off the board, particularly a lot of like the marquee guys are not really available. So I'm not sure what's going to happen there. I am just very curious. And I feel like the way it kind of all shakes out, it still is December 23rd. The Mets could maybe add another starter by the time opening day rolls around. And if they don't, I really hope they do add one by the deadline, because maybe, like we said, your best option is the trade market outside of Sasaki. So like realistic guys that you could actually try to do normal free agent stuff. The best guys are in the trade market right now. I mean, as far as fit and just kind of talent to some extent, besides Corbin Burns, like they're all available trade market. So if some teams are not willing to move them, I mean, that's kind of the thing that we always talk about with trades, is that like it takes 2 to tango. There's many times where teams might offer a package in the offseason. A team says no, but then during the deadline, they say, okay, you know what? We thought we were going to be a little more competitive. Okay, we will now trade this player that we were thinking about doing the offseason, but we waited till the deadline. So that is something that still can happen. But I feel like for the Mets, it's like unless a Sasaki falls in your lap, like a lot of people like to talk about Castillo. I still just don't quite see how that gets done. I mean, as much as I love it, I still don't quite see it yet. I feel like, the Mariners, I just don't see why they would do it. I feel like they need some offense back in return. They should just be giving away Castillo with how good of a team that they have on paper. So unless the only other like total like curveball, so to speak, is if Corbin Burns took one of those very short-term high AAV deals, because Steve Cohen had said this way back when. He said, if I'm going over the tax, I'm going way over. So it's like, since I'm over the tax anyway, what's stopping me from getting Corbin Burns? Because like we always say, especially when a guy is going to be 30, the thing that would worry you more is the term. It's like, okay, I may be like really hamstringed now financially, but 5 years from now, 6 years from now, I'm good again. So I could just kind of target other guys, because like we've said, the Mets are not going to overpay for guys unless there's very specific circumstances like a Juan Soto or somebody like that. They're not going to do it. I mean, they waited out the Manaea thing until the deal is right. And, we'll get to Pete later on, but they're going to wait it out. Even though it's like, it makes so much sense. All the first base options are gone. They're waiting it out. So this is their approach that they're taking. They'll say, okay, we offer fair trade packages. We offer fair free agency deals. If those things don't materialize, we're going to stay pat. Maybe Sproat develops, and that's our other pitcher, and now we have a nice rotation. So, like, there's a few different ways this can still go, and that's kind of what I like about this Manaea thing, is that it was so team-friendly that it doesn't really prevent you from making other things happen.
Yeah, I mean, when it looks from the standpoint of how the Mets kind of constructed this a little bit, because we know that they have the reclamation projects in this rotation, and I know that they're going to definitely bank on a little bit for somewhat stability and, more bullets, more kills. Obviously, we talk about this of if you bring in a quantity of these guys, then maybe some of them will hit. Along with SHAMANAH, I've been very vocal. I have said that this is the guy they need to bring back because it comes in with quite a sweet spot in regards to SHAMANAH, of where he's been relatively healthy. He is given good enough consistency, and he can do a little bit of both, going deep into games. He can be a strikeout. He can be a strikeout pitcher, and he also does not need to throw his arm out in order to completely dominate, which is the way that I looked at, maybe Chris Bassett or something, where he can eat innings, be a workhorse of the rotation. Do I like him a little bit more in the number 3 spot in a playoff rotation? Yes, I do. because he did get 3-starter money. He got $25 million, which is basically what 3 starters are getting these days. If you think that it's an overpay, welcome to the pitching market. That's just how it is. The Mets got every single thing that went right here because I think that Stearns brings in quite an environment that is very likable to a lot of pitchers, and it makes them more come to him than him going out to get them. From the looks of it from Manaea, we all know of how the talk of the talk of all of these free agents of saying, "Oh, I'd love to be back. I loved my time here." It seems like there was a little bit more of an emphasis in regards to Manaea coming back, because there was definitely more of a connection from the inside and the outside. The way that I say that is, we know that Frankie Montas is a really good friend of Manaea. They were teammates in Oakland, and Montas actually asked Manaea about the Mets organization in regards to that, and it ended up moving in our way, and Frankie Montas ended up coming out in, and we get another former Oakland A. And then Manaea ends up coming back. He speaks very highly of it. We already know how much of a great locker room presence he has been. He was the entire year. He's obviously a great teammate, and I think that overall, the way that it all meets in the middle with the circumstances of the salary, of his age, of his this, of his that, I feel like it's just such a perfect fit for the next few years of where you can lock things down, of where you're not going all in on him. You're not investing the Max Scherzer, Justin Verlander money, but you're also not getting a bum. You're getting a guy who is in the middle of the rotation, who can be stable, and he can also eat some of those innings, as compared to other guys that I've talked about not wanting to bring back, such as Luis Severino, where there was concerns about the injury history. You never know if he got worn out in that regard. Jose Quintana is a little bit different. Obviously, just his age and all of that. There was a sweet spot there. Manaea, he's 32 right now. He's going to go into a 33-year-old season. That's pretty much the tail end of the prime. Maybe in the third year, it starts to tail off a little bit. You never really know with that certain arm slot of how he's going to be able to, sustain that in that way, because there is a little bit of a concern, because it's a very irregular motion. When you see a traditional pitching motion, that's an irregular motion as well. But when you look at from the angle that he throws from, makes your elbow hurt a little bit. So hopefully, when it comes to a 6-man rotation, he gets that extra day of rest. He'll be well conditioned towards the postseason. And then, maybe they can get a little bit more from him once again. Overall, the peripherals are not amazing. Maybe there is a little bit of mediocre there. But there are some niches when it comes to Manaea. And I think that that's the best way to kind of lock down the middle of your rotation with guys who can basically do a little bit of both. He can strike out batters, he can contact manage, and he can go deep into games and basically anchor that middle of the rotation where it can kind of, fill in a few of these types of things. But when it comes to the overall rotation and other things that they can add, I do believe that they are going to be in the market for starting pitching. I don't think that it's going to mean that they're 100% bringing in another starting pitcher. Who knows what is going to happen? I think that going into opening day with this rotation, fully healthy, obviously, is fine right now. It is fine, but they're obviously going to keep their options open. One guy that is going to be talked about, and I think that they're going to talk about him in regards to, Roki Sasaki, we already talked about him. It's his choice of where he wants to go. It seems like the Mets are in his top 3 right now of, Dodgers, Padres, and Mets. It seems like that's the top 3 right now for Roki Sasaki. We'll see what happens. It might not happen, but if it does end up happening, and, let's just say, hypothetically, the way things have been landing in our lap recently, let's say, just putting it in as a fantasy, okay? Let's just say, because we've seen the Mets do it before, Roki Sasaki chooses the Mets by some magical thing. Jeremy Hefner, the sweet talker, the magician, the extraordinaire in pitching, is able to recruit somebody like Roki Sasaki here, who, in my opinion, right now is the best pitcher in the world because DeGrom is not healthy. But when it comes to Roki Sasaki, bringing him in, there's possibility that he would be like the number 2 in the rotation, easing him in. Overall talent, he has the ability to be a ace. I mean, the guy can be a superstar, a phenom. Let's say they bring in somebody like Roki Sasaki, all right? Wouldn't it be funny if, like, the Boris client, Corbin Burns, also, after they bring in Roki Sasaki, Corbin Burns, his market falls out because nobody wants to pay him. And then the Mets end up giving Corbin Burns a contract like they gave to Scherzer or Verlander, who's younger. So then you're looking at a rotation of Senga, Burns. So Burns would be probably the number 1. Burns, Senga, Sasaki can come in here, which we know who can be a superstar, but he can be a number 3 in a rotation. If that just lands in your lap that way, I don't think it's going to happen, obviously. But there are still some connections there. Remember, Roki Sasaki seems to like the Mets organization. Jeremy Hefner, obviously, magician, a man beyond young boys. But when it comes to Corbin Burns, got Boris Client, Corbin Burns, Milwaukee, David Stearns. There's connections there. That there is an outlet, but there are things that need to fall into place here. And, you know, with all these starting pitchers going off the board, maybe Corbin Burns does sit out there for a majority of the offseason. You never know how this is going to play out. What are your guys' thoughts on that with other additions they can make to structure up this rotation, let's just say?
I mean, I would be surprised if they got all of them. You know what I mean? Like, I would find it like
the flexibility to do it. Let's just say that.
They do. And I think that's kind of where the Sasaki thing is just so exciting with the international part of it. And I don't know what's so
it's
funny, but
Sasaki.
Sasaki.
But okay.
You're saying it like the Sasaki sauce. Like you say it.
Sorry. Roki. Can I say Roki?
I'm sorry. It's so funny. It's so funny.
I'm
You
sorry.
can just say Roki. It's fine.
It's
whatever.
I'm sorry. Roki. So if the Mets were able to sign Roki to be in the rotation at the international deal, that'd be great because Senga, to pitch like a number 1 is not getting paid like a number 1. If Manaea pitched like a 2 last year, he's not getting paid to be a 2. So it's like we talk about how expensive starting pitching could be, but you have an opportunity to build a rotation without having to pay those like ace prices or number 2 pitcher prices. Like it would just make things, and you know, you already have Juan Soto, so you know it doesn't. What more are you really gonna do? But it does just make things a lot easier. I wouldn't predict that they get all of them, or I don't see that. But you know,
I don't think they get
Roki
either. To be
gets
honest,
here.
I don't think it happens,
I will say that the one good thing about Roki, as far as like with the Mets perspective, didn't get a meeting with the Yankees. I mean, he did not really want to talk to the Yankees. So as much as people want to talk about like, oh, you know, maybe
told the Phillies to fuck off too.
Yeah, so, you know, maybe certain players want to be on the West Coast. I mean, this is like the East Coast team he want to talk to. So there actually is something to like the Mets organization and Jeremy Hefner. It's like there is something there. Like we heard that report, and at first we were like, really, he likes Hefner? Like I was skeptical about that when I saw that. But I feel like based off seeing the teams that are getting to meet with him and who might be the finalists, there's actually some truth there. So I feel like that's a really good sign for the Mets. And, you know, I feel like someone mentioned in the chat, but, you know, if you see some of these pitchers like Manaea or Severino, and then maybe that happens with Montas this year, but if they see a lot of guys who maybe careers weren't going well, and then all of a sudden they come to the Mets and then they put together solid seasons, it becomes an appealing destination for starting pitching. Like, you know, you get to work under David Stearns. Like, it's a really good recruiting tool to, like, keep fixing pitchers. And if pitchers like, well, you know, what's going to give me the best chance to, like, actually develop and become a better pitcher, you might think of the Mets as maybe one of those teams that could do that while also paying you. because you're like, oh, if I want to get better, I would just go to Tampa, but Tampa's not going to pay me. So it's like you kind of get the opportunity to do both, where you get to make money, but also improve yourself for that long-term growth as well. So I know the Mets, they're in a good spot. You know, it's kind of those things where you hope that he comes here because, like we said, it's not just going to be one of those bidding wars, so to speak. So I really hope they could get him. It would make just everything flow so much better. I would feel way, way, way better about the Mets if they're able to do it. Because like we're going to get to, there still are some things that need to get done. I mean, they're off to a great start. Obviously, getting Soto and some other things that they've been able to do here. But there's still, as we know, is more work to be done. And there's still like some things that maybe could be tailored a little bit better as far as like better fits with some of the guys who are currently here even. So it's like, oh, we don't necessarily have a hole in certain spots. It's like we have someone who could be the DH, but not necessarily someone who should be the DH. So you kind of work on those things as far as like getting those better fits and exchanging some things. But overall, you know, obviously you'd love either one. If you got both, I mean, oh my God, then the Mets are like big time contenders. But, you know, overall, I just hope that Sasaki, I said it wrong. I'm sorry. Roki's the more realistic one, I would say, just because Burns, I don't know what's going to happen there. I still feel like maybe somebody gives that long-term deal. So I would say that Roki's a little more realistic, I hope. But, you know, we'll see. And, you know, as far as the trade things, who knows who could become available too. I feel like that's the other thing as well, is like, you know, maybe there are guys who are just not on the trade market now who then are on the trade market at the trade deadline. Like, or maybe there's even though I wasn't super high on him, but maybe you have next year's version of Eric Fetty. Like maybe there were guys who like you didn't like, but then they got off to a great first half and you're like, oh, well maybe we should trade for them, you know? So it's like, then all of a sudden, like you have more options too. So that's why it's good to just kind of, if you don't love anything, don't overcommit to it and just kind of, again, see what's available then. Like they're not just gonna be like, oh, we could use another starting pitcher, so we're just gonna pay anybody. So it's like, just kind of, they're keeping their options open, which is what I like. So that definitely is the best approach to take, especially with pitching, because we know it is so volatile. You don't want to overpay and then you end up regretting it. So you just don't want to be in that situation.
I mean, I always imagine David Stearns, and we all know how much of a big guy I have been of him for a long time, even back when he was in Milwaukee, and we were sitting here with some of these idiots in this front office. I already know that, you know, probably he sees some of the stuff of Mets fans scrambling around and asking them to basically buy everyone because Steve Cohen's wallet is, you know, 800,000 times bigger than everybody, pretty much everybody in the world, except for the top 1%. But he ain't desperate. He's not a desperate guy. If he sees someone that he wants, he'll go and get him. But he's not going to just put all of his chips into one basket and then just panic to another thing just because he has a surplus of money there. He's always going to be opportunistic when that opportunity comes, but he's not going to make some kind of desperate pivot because he has money to do so, and he's playing fantasy baseball because he's able to do that with Steve Cohen's money. He's not going to do that. It's not going to happen. And that will be a thing that I will bring up as well in regards to a topic that we will talk about in a second, in a little bit. But when it comes to the overall feel of the Mets organization right now, it seems like it continues to be a lot more appealable. It seems like, you know, as the years continue to go, it seems to get better and better every year. Hopefully, again, we still need to have back-to-back years where they go to the playoffs. Last time that happened, that they went to the playoffs in back-to-back years, it was 2015, 2016. 2016, they spent 3 hours in the playoffs. So does it really count? Who knows? So a sustainable winner is not something that we have seen for a while, but the way that Stearns, you know, works behind the closed doors, keeps us all in the dark, I like it. It sucks in the way of a content creator where we have to get up at like 2 a.m. and do streams for it, but it keeps you on your toes in that regard. The Mets have done things in clumps as well. It seems like they signed like 3 guys in the span of 2 days. He's not going to be full on desperate. I always refer to in desperate pivots. I always refer to it, even though this is a Mets show. When the Knicks, we thought we were going to get LeBron, and then they were like, okay, let's throw money at the next thing out there. And that's Amari Stoudemire, and let's just overpay him and rush to bring him in. That's what I continue to reference there of like, oh, well, this guy ain't coming, so let's just scramble out and get the next guy. When it comes to Sasaki, I think it's looked at as a luxury here. It's not. It does speak a little bit volumes of him liking the organization. Again, this was a tweet out from Jim Bowden, who has not been very accurate. Not to call him out. Hey, Jim, I'm sure you're a nice guy. But okay. You got something to say it.
He's just a yapper. I mean, who gives a shit? He just likes the yap.
Yeah, wow. Game recognizes game, I guess, right, Frank?
Yeah.
Anyways, but when it comes to Sasaki, again, this is not a money thing. We've seen a lot of things, especially with even when Max Scherzer, even when he ended up coming here, Yoshinobu Yamamoto, things like that, where the Mets' money was the main advantage that they had to use leverage to go to the Dodgers or the Padres or another team and use them as leverage. The Mets are not considered a money factor. Nobody's considered a money factor in regards to Roki Sasaki. He gets to just make the choice. So it definitely speaks volumes as to where the presence of Stearns, maybe it's Jeremy Hefner, you never know. And maybe that is something that does happen. But when it comes to like that view of the organization from the outside that you just said, Frank, I mean, what you're talking about of like, you're getting paid, you're treated well, and you can develop your game and restructure your entire career and take a bet on yourself. I mean, that also does sound like something that the Dodgers do as well. I mean, that is something that Dodgers do, and those are some characteristics that you have to fill in, and slowly but surely, they're getting to that level. They're not there yet. It's not anywhere close, but they will eventually get there. All we can hope is that it continues to get better every year. That's what we're looking for the sustainable winning and a sustainable franchise. Now, speaking of year to year and someone who has been here for a long time, now somebody in the chat, everybody is obviously talking about the Pete Alonso situation. Now, there is a lot to unpack in regards to what the Mets can do with their offense. We know that they promised Juan Soto some bats, and they definitely should, because he's going to be here for the next 15 years, and he is going to have the prime of his career in front of him in a Mets uniform. So I think when you sign a superstar like that, you probably want to bring in some more bats. If you don't, you're freaking incompetent, which I don't think David Stearns is. Anyway, now, as for Pete Alonso, he is currently still on the free agent market as we currently speak. You never know. Maybe the news drops because the Mets are just nuts like that. With his market of what we are expected to see or what we didn't expect to see, right now, the market for Pete Alonso is fading. And not to really say I told you so, maybe we will throughout the entire segment, but I don't know what to tell you. But when it comes to Pete Alonso, and I'm going to do this for someone in the comments section of one of our videos, what was it, last week, who hated when I did this. So I'm going to do it again just for you, just to piss you off. For those of you who don't know who Pete Alonso is, Pete Alonso was our first baseman for the last 6 years, homegrown talent, second-round pick in 2016 out of the University of Florida. And he is on the free agent market, and obviously the timeline with what it has been of recent, of his future here, it has been in flux for since probably the end of the 2023 season is when that talk about his contract was talked about. So I do want to talk about the entire market and the situation of Pete Alonso. And we can all agree that this polar bear market, it's polar plunging right now, and it's collapsing right in front of him, where it pretty much just backs him into a corner right now. Now, as for some of these reports of some trusted sources that have been pretty much of the impression of what his market has looked like, This is something that I feel like we've pretty much repeated a lot as he continued to struggle and not be himself in 2024. Jeff Passan on ESPN a few days ago talked about teams being hesitant to give Alonso a long-term deal, but they do see great value in adding him for the next few years. As for Mark Feinstein of MLB.com, he did get a AL executive source who is anonymous, but they also talked about Pete Alonso, of how he's viewed out on the market, and saying, Alonso is a complicated player. He is in his 30s, and he's a right-handed first baseman who is good, but probably had his best year already, probably referring to 2019 or 2022. He's not a defender. He's not an athlete, but he has no issue with the spotlight. He hits homers and hits them in big spots. He is a tough one. But as for all of these other guys on this first baseman market, it's pretty much been clearing out, and the options are dwindling for Pete Alonso as to where, pretty much falling into the Mets' lap as of right now. Christian Walker signed with the Astros for 3 years, $60 million. Paul Goldschmidt went to the Yankees, somebody that was a team that was attached to Alonso for a second, maybe as a kind of a revenge tactic for taking Soto. Who knows? We'll never know. Carlos Santana, after the D-backs acquired Josh Naylor from the Guardians, went back to the Guardians, has his reunion. I think this is his third stint with the franchise, 1 year, $12 million. And of course, the Nationals, who are also in that market and seem to be interested in Alonso, went the other way and went for Nathaniel Lau. And as for the Rangers and their first base situation, it seems like they are pushing Jake Berger, who they acquired through trade from the Marlins, to first base. And then, of course, in the DH spot, bringing in Jock Peterson. Hurts my heart every single time, every single offseason when he signs elsewhere and not the orange and blue. But you know what? We are not here to talk about my twisted emotions and my deep feelings for Jock Peterson, who I love. But as for the Mets timeline, let's give a little bit of a refresher. Before the 2023 trade deadline, the Mets offered 7 years, $158 million to Alonso. He rejected that at the trade deadline, fired his agent, and then hired Scott Boras after the regular season ended. The Mets and Alonso did have some preliminary talks about extension. They didn't get really anywhere close enough on AAV, which I'm pretty sure everybody knows his value by now in AAV, but far away on contract term. Throughout the entire year, which is understandable, he stated disinterest to negotiate during the 2024 season. And of course, the Mets, with him being, the franchise piece that he has been, giving him the qualifying offer as we all expected, with what they have done with a lot of their homegrown guys. He received it. He rejected it. It was $21.05 million. And now he is on the open market. Now, of course, when you look at it in hindsight, in terms of the market, in terms of everything that you get from Pete Alonso, we've seen a little bit of a decline, let's just say, in his skills a little bit from the 2019 year, maybe the 2022 year. It's soured a little bit in regards to his future here. People have talked about it. It's been a topic of discussion. I mean, Andrew, I'll go to you here. You've been one of the first guys to talk about it many, many times, about Alonso's market and the interest around how people view him in this fan base, to how he's viewed from the outside. I mean, I think we all could agree here. Andrew, 7 years, $158 million were on the table. I think at this current moment, I think it's easy to say Pete Alonso played himself. He screwed up.
Yeah, Pete, you had so many steak dinners just sitting there. $100 million, and hell, look what happened. You said Scott Boras got in your head, and he said, well, you're a polar bear. You're going to get $200 million. Look at people on Twitter. They think you're a $200 million player. And in reality, slapped him straight in the face. Teams don't pay fat, unathletic, no tool besides hitting the ball over the fence, And now you're going to have to crawl back to the New York Mets for $7 million, as I said this morning. No, again, who could have seen this coming? Oh, it's almost like, again, the market is what the market is. And Matt Olson, you're not better than Matt Olson. You're not better than Freddie Freeman. You weren't getting that. And the fans are like, and this is why I hate fans, because everyone, again, we're fans. We love them, even though I don't. But, they grow attached.
You know
they
that most
bite
of our
it.
viewers are Mets fans. By the
Yeah,
way,
maybe
guys, he
not.
hates you. He hates
Yeah,
you.
I
just
hate
so
all
you
of
know.
you. Well, I hate everyone that loves Pete Alonso because, he's the man. He's the polar bear. And he's going to think about the kids and he's all the people that bought his jersey. And, hey, it's the benefit, guys. This was the best case scenario for the Mets. He went out and tested the market. Everyone was terrified. Oh, it's the Cubs. Oh, the Yankees are going to pay him. And all they've done have gone to less, older, shittier version and said, Pete, no, you're fat. I'll go older. No, thank you. And he's going to come back for 60 cents on the dollar. He might get 4 years. I would be shocked if he comes back and gets anything over 115 million. I would be genuinely shocked. I haven't said 100 million, but I'll be nice because maybe it's a Bellinger type esque deal where it's front loaded, high AAV in the first year with an opt out, but has the benefit if he continues to be fat, he's got a little bit of comfortability on the back end of the deal, and he's making a little bit of money. But the fact that, again, he was going to go out here and $200 million, 250. But again, let's play this game. Isn't there a first baseman next offseason who's licking his lips, who's, I would say, not as fat as Pete Alonso, but has more tools than Pete Alonso? And that guy, he's going to get money. And Scott Boras is going to be like, that's the guy. And he's like, but we're going to say, Mets fans are going to say, hey, Pete Alonso's been better than Vlad Guerrero. He never was. But, hey, he hits more homers. And look what's going to happen. Pete's going to sign for like maybe $23 million at most a year. And Vlad's probably going to get $450 million because there's levels to this, Pete. You're a nice ball player. You finally hit a couple clutch homers in your life. We appreciate it. It took you literally almost your last AB of the season to do it, and we appreciate it. But again, when you do it, when you're not clutch, you're not a dog, you're not a leader, you're not going to get paid. And it's good for the Mets. You're getting them cheaper. So it's less term, less AEV. It's a win-win for the Mets. But Pete's going to come back looking with a bunch of sloppy Joe on his face. But hey, I care about the name on the front of the chest. I could give a rat's ass to the name on the back. So it benefits the Mets to bring him back cheaper.
I mean, here's the deal. When it comes to Pete Alonso, we know what the market was expected to be, especially after the year that he just had. Frank, I know that you're seething at a certain comment. This is a continuing beef, but we'll continue this on. I think the thing is that Mets fans view Pete Alonso as one of the best hitters of the franchise history, and he definitely is. But as compared to the entirety of all MLB franchises, he's looked at as he's a singular tool heavy type of emphasis on heavy because he's a tubby guy. That one's for you, Andrew. But when it comes to the overall market, it wasn't going to be looked at in regards to how Mets fans look at him. All right. Now listen, when it comes to Pete Alonso, we've been critical this year because he has not performed to that standard. And he has been one of those guys from day one that's been very critical of this, saying, weren't you guys, Pete doesn't have protection apologists. That was a bullshit narrative. And guess what? He got his protection this year. He was not able to perform to the standard that we expected him in a contract year. So obviously, there you go. You were right. There's your victory if you want it, MEZ. I am willing to admit when I'm wrong completely, and he was not able to do what he was able to do in that way. There are obviously some concerns long term. I've talked about it before. Frank, I will go to you, and I think that this is probably where you agree with me at this current moment. When it comes to Pete Alonso, I am fine with him, and I'm fine without him. Doesn't matter what happens. Again, I'm at the current moment of David Stearns, where he's really not desperate. And right now, to be honest, Pete Alonso, once again, with all of these other free agents, Pete Alonso, you're coming to Stearns. Stearns ain't coming to you. We can do this waiting game forever because we know that Stearns can figure something out if you end up going somewhere else, and good luck if you get paid somewhere else. But right now, who is going to give him that type of money as his market continues to dwindle? Tons of teams are getting in their first baseman. It continues to, and it inflated this week. Let's just say that a lot of first baseman transactions went. TikTok, Pete, let's just say that. I mean, Frank, how do you feel about this? I mean, again, I will say it one more time. 7 years, $158 million was on the table. So listen, he took a bet, he gambled, and he lost.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I really feel like, the Christian Walker thing, once he signed, I mean, everything just like, it was so quick. I mean, so many first basemen just instantly went off the board. I mean, you were seeing stuff like within hours, especially like with the Nathaniel Lowe trade. It's like that trade happens and then like another move happens shortly after. It's like, okay, now Santana's there and Goldschmidt's already off the board. So it's come now to a point where if you're the Mets, you say, okay, right now I have an opening at first base. What are my options? There's not many left that are like actually good. And then if you're Pete Alonso, okay, I'm a free agent. What teams are available? There's not really many left that are realistic. That's the thing to keep in mind. You could look at a team and say, oh, they could use a first baseman. That should be a suitor for Pete Alonso. But it doesn't always necessarily happen that way. I mean, the guys mentioned it on the Till Mets Do Us Part podcast like earlier today, but it's like, okay, Seattle in theory makes sense as a place that should want Alonso, but money matters. Seattle's not going to pay $150 million for Pete Alonso. That's not going to happen. The St. Louis Cardinals are trying to trade Nolan Arenado because of financial reasons. They're not going to pay Pete Alonso $150 million up. So now you're looking at a situation where it's like, what team that needs a first baseman and would actually pay over $150 million? There really is not many left. So it's in a situation where mutually, for the Mets and Pete Alonso, it's a perfect match right now. I mean, that's kind of where it's at right now. It's like there's not many other first basemen left. Not many other teams left. And the Mets are just, like you said, they're going to wait this out, though, because they're saying, okay, you want to offer? We have one. How about this? 7 years, $158 million. Take it or leave it. You could beat it? Go for it. Let's see it. Bring it to me. I want you to bring me the offer that is better than 7 years, $158 million, and then we could talk. Until then, that is your offer. Good luck finding it elsewhere. And that's where they're getting caught up. And I feel that just with the way Scott Boras handles this, it is going to drag on and on and on and on. I have said for a while now, and I feel like the only other alternative, and this still involves the Mets, he comes back to the Mets, like Andrew said, on a shorter deal for more AAV. They'll say, oh, I got more per year, but less years. And that also works to the Mets' advantage because you get him for these few years, and then you say once again, okay, now tell a team to sign you for multiple years when now you're almost near like 35, which then teams are really going to be reluctant to do that. So no matter what, you're in a win-win situation where it's kind of like the Soto thing, where you get the prime years, and then if the guy wants to move on elsewhere, go for it because you got the best version of them to begin with. So I feel like no matter what, it's still Mets' advantage right now as far as like leverage or negotiations because of just like, okay, well, show me the deal. I mean, show me something that is better than what we're offering you. I mean, Pete Alonso does turn 30 next season. So we're talking about the age 30 season. And that's what you're paying for. So I feel like that's where they're at. They're saying, okay, if you could beat our offer, go do it. And they have not been able to do it yet.
All right. So here's the one thing I want to say, because this intertwines with two different things, okay? When it comes to Pete Alonso and the overall negotiations and the business side of baseball, it is not personal. It may sound like it is personal, but I'm seeing a lot of people in the chat taking it a little bit personal of some of the things that we are saying. We don't know Pete. I'm sure that you guys don't know Pete personally. All of this is tongue-in-cheek here. Okay, it's not really here to just be something that we are saying and just brutally insulting him no matter what. Okay, none of it is supposed to be something. Don't make it worse. None of it is supposed to be looked at as something that we are saying it personally. Sometimes it is show effect. That's just how it is. Okay. So before you're ready to bite all of our heads off. Okay. Let me just say something here. Okay. When it comes to Pete Alonso here. All right. Again, the Mets have had a lot of situations where they've had homegrown guys who maybe they've tried to retain, they've made offers to, and they ended up going elsewhere. Michael Conforto, they made him a, 5 years, $100 million contract extension. They ended up being right in the end as he was not good in 2021. Ended up sitting out for 2022 with a shoulder injury, and then he ends up taking a prove-it deal with San Francisco, stuff like that. When it comes to Pete Alonso, obviously he's been more healthy than Michael Conforto. Different situation, but he did not have the best contract year possible, okay? We have called him fat. We have called him low IQ. Again, I see it as that's how I kind of, I that's how I show my love, okay? That's how I look. I don't know if that's how Andrew does it, but again, we have called them tubby. We've called guys this and that and this, all for show effect, okay? It's not personal, all right? We're just playing, all right? You should not be getting offended on behalf of Pete Alonso because, like I said, he doesn't know you. You don't know him. Anyways, I can also say that in regards to Ranger fans, but different story. Anyways, exactly. There you go. Perfect. Pete's an idiot, but he's our idiot. All right? We make fun of him out of love, okay? But anyways, when it comes to the entire market of how we're looking at it here, again, how Mets fans look at him compared to what he has done in our franchise, because again, he could shatter the home run record in franchise history. He's up there with one of the best hitters that this franchise has seen for a while. For 6 years, he has been a plus bat. He's been a great power bat for them. He's been one of the best hitters that they have developed in franchise history. Then you look at it from overall value. But you look at it from overall value, from the vision of Matt Olson or Freddie Freeman in that regard. When it comes to Pete Alonso, let's look at this from pure tools and pure value, okay? Pete Alonso is a prolific power hitter. Overall, the contact stuff, his contact tools, at best, are slightly above average, right? Serviceable enough where he can produce enough and sustain a good amount of 120 bat. Let's just say that. The power, great raw power, 80 grade raw power, not in the level of Judge or Stanton or Yordan, but pretty damn close. Not the best fleet of foot, not a great base runner. We know that. It's hilarious when he runs. And again, we make fun of him out of love because it's hilarious. He's not a great defensive first baseman. Before you tell me that he's great at scooping, bite me. When it comes to the overall him as a defender, he's not great at it. Has he gotten better? Sure. His range isn't great, whatever. We know his arm ain't there. We know he doesn't have a great arm. We know that his throwing decisions are not great. So what does that leave him as? Power first baseman. I'm not going to say that he's one tool. I'm going to say he's more of a one-way first baseman. Contact and power, serviceable enough to be a power first baseman in that position. That's the type of value that you usually get from a typical first baseman. Before I hear that Lindor would have had more errors if it wasn't for Alonso, again, Lindor has been one of the best defenders in all of baseball. I don't want to hear it. Not to mention, who was his first baseman? The other guy that the Mets had a little bit of interest in, and we've talked about, in Carlos Santana over in Cleveland, who is also one of the best defensive first basemen. So I think Lindor would be fine if he didn't have Pete or if he had Pete. Again, fine with him, fine without him. Pete Alonso, again, Stearns, every time, he's not going to go out of his way to go after Pete Alonso when he knows what player value is. He's not going to go out of his way because, again, he was not the guy that gave him the $158 million offer. He wasn't the GM at that point. It was Billy Epler. We don't know what his attachment is to Pete. We know that he has a price because Pete is a limited player. He is a limited first baseman. That is true. You can't tell me that he is not. You can't tell me that he is the second coming of Jesus. And once again, he is going to continue to repeat the 53 home run season that he had in 2019. It's not going to happen. Is it possible that he could be 40 or 45? Sure, we've seen him do that before. This doesn't mean that we hate Pete Alonso. This doesn't mean that we never want him back and we will just let him go and we want him gone. Just like how we want certain guys gone because they stink in free agency. Like Adam Ottavino, I don't want you back at all by any circumstance. But when it comes to Pete Alonso, fine with him, fine without him. When I'm talking about this from the standpoint is whatever happens, happens. Whatever happens, they will move on from it. Obviously, the first baseman market right now is starting to trim down, and maybe they're going to run out of options if Pete ends up going elsewhere. But right now, with the overall money that he's asking, it's a match made in heaven right now. Am I laughing? And me and Andrew laughing a little bit of how he has to kind of crawl back to us? Yes. Does that go with us kind of making fun of him and busting his balls a little bit of how he rejected that money? Yes. But if he comes back here, or even if he goes elsewhere, we wish him the best. Again, it's not just stop making it worse. Stop. Okay? You're literally starting a war here. Stop. I'm being serious here. All right? Again, you look at the market here. This is what has been offered. Again, I like Pete Alonso. He's been a great part of this franchise for 6 years. But again, there's still a limit. And listen, like we've said, if we see something we don't like, we're going to point it out. We can still like Pete Alonso and not like the decision that he made. And again, the decision that he made to turn down 7 years, $158 million, it's looking like, in hindsight, a stupid one. And Pete Alonso right now, on his behalf of hiring Scott Boras, getting all that money, he's kind of screwed. He is kind of screwed in that matter, and he's most likely going to have to crawl back to the Mets. And again, we'll welcome him back with open arms if we can agree there. Because he's been here for a while. He's a likable guy. But if he doesn't come back, he doesn't come back. Frank, if there's anything that you want to add in regards to that, because I'm just going to say, I mean, we can go off with this continuously.
Yeah,
I would, because I do want to get into somebody else who's on the market.
Exactly. I would, but there's another guy who we're gonna get to right now who's also been kind of talked as maybe an alternative or kind of injunction with Pete. So let's get to the next guy in order to kind of continue the conversation.
But, anyways, listen, it's all part of the charm. If you don't like it, well, tough shit, It's tough shit, Anyways, and then I'll also give you another thing of tough love here. And I probably shouldn't because it probably will be shooting ourselves in the foot. But you know what? Don't tell podcasters how to do their show. How about that? Let's move on. Anyways, moving on to another bat that is on the market, and that being Alex Bregman, which is somebody that the Mets have been linked to these past, let's say, couple of weeks of them in the market. Of course, there has been talks about possibly getting, let's say, retaining Pete Alonso. Maybe there is Alex Bregman in the mix as well. In addition to that, I did put a poll in the chat. Guys, let us know what you would prefer, what scenario you would. And that being signing Alonso, signing Bregman, signing Alonso and Bregman, or signing neither of them. So let us know, and we'll go into the results on that in a second. But I do want to do a little bit of a profile on Bregman because we have not done a full breakdown yet. He's kind of just been, fluttered around in some of these discussions on the offseason. So I want to get into Alex Bregman, and I am sure, we will definitely have some polarizing discussions in this realm. Now, Alex Bregman, of course, the report came out that the Mets are continuing to show interest in him, and they are considered a legitimate potential landing spot for the infielder, and that was via Mike Mayer. We've also gotten sons of other reports of his market, of course, with him being a Boris client, the relationship with Boris going up. I'm not going to get into my opinions. I'll let these guys speak first. But overall, Alex Bregman, one of the best third basemen in all of baseball ever since he came into the league. A 39.7 wins above replacement. That's through Fangraphs WAR since his debut. 2 All-Star selections, 2-time World Series champion with the Astros. If you want to count the one in 2019, go ahead. Gold Glover, Silver Slugger. We already know about his great plate discipline. Of course, low chase rates, does not strike out a lot, puts the ball in play, not much swing and miss. Another quality season from him, 26 homers, 75 RBIs, 118 weighted runs created plus, OPS over 700, of course, hard hit rates, in that average range, definitely not finding the barrel as much as he did in 2024. He is going to be 31 years old, going into a 31-year-old season. Or, third base. There are some different scenarios that I will get into, but I do want to talk about this because it's obviously been floating around. It has definitely been sizzling in these rumors. The first thing that I will say, okay, I have strong opinions about possibly Alex Bregman, and I will get into those. But I do want to kind of segue this to Frank in this regard, because I'm not sure what your opinion on this is. I know what Andrew's opinion is, whether he's going to hide it or not. But when it comes to Alex Bregman, I think this is a little bit more of a smokescreen than actual substance. But it is still something to think about with the Mets' financial flexibility. So what is your thought about the whole Bregman situation of the Mets pursuing him on the market? Does it have to come with Alonso? Does it have to come with this? Does it have to come with that? What are the stipulations here? How are you feeling about a possibility of Alex Bregman coming over to the Mets?
He is one that there is a lot to unpack. I was very much like you when the idea was first kind of talked about. I thought this was more of one of those things we've seen in the Steve Cohen era where teams like to connect the Mets to a player, whether the Mets are actually interested or not, to drive up prices, to say, okay, well, we are a team, or we are a player that is asking for a lot of money. And we say, oh, if the Mets are interested in us, they're one of those teams that actually could meet what our demand is. So at first I thought it was that. But as time has gone on, and someone like Mike Mayer being like, actually saying like, no, the Mets are legitimately interested in Alex Bregman, now has me like, okay, I believe it. I'm like, okay, they are interested, but as far as like how I feel about him, there's a lot to go to. I mean, I'll start off with this. When I see in 2018 an 8 WAR and 2019 a 9 WAR, and then all of a sudden you're dropping down to 4 ever since, you sure look like a cheater when there's a cheating scandal going on in those years. I mean, that is a huge red flag right there, that like this guy who at one point we thought was one of the best players in the league is looking like a big time cheater. Still a good player, not a great player. Still a good player. The next thing I'm looking at is these past 3 seasons, we are seeing him declining offensively each year as he has now hit age 30. And it goes without saying in sports, generally speaking, once a player hits 30, things go down. So he's already declining before reaching age 30. Now he's 30, so he's going to be 31. So the chances of him continuing to decline are much higher than him improving. I mean, you've definitely seen the best of Bregman. So if he's a guy who's asking for like $200 million, maybe 5 years or more, why are you committing that to a guy who's already on a decline? I'm just not quite getting that. And you know what? If he was a guy where it's like, okay, well, let's say he was, a 950 OPS guy, then he was like 920, then he's 900. All right, then he would still be a great player. But no, we're talking about going from 820 to 768. I mean, like you said, WRC plus 113. So he's a guy that was going from pretty good to he's just hovering above league average. So he's really just not all that offensively. Now, like we said, is he a better all-around player than Pete Alonso? Yes. Is he a better fit than Pete Alonso? Well, that's where I'm not so sure. You guys talked about it last night, but you know what? Mark Vientos, is he the greatest, third baseman? No, but he could play third base and you're fine. You know what I mean? Like, it's not a big deal. And you know what? It's like if you got Bregman instead of Alonso and you put Vientos at first, I've said this before, but like, I'm not sure that's actually better for your defense. Like, I don't know if an inexperienced Mark Vientos at first base is better than just having Vientos at third with Alonso. Even though we have defensive concerns, at least he could scoop the ball better than anybody and can actually play the position and be fine and just like not a liability. Like, at least he could do that. And I just feel like when we talk about now the way the team is constructed, adding in Juan Soto, I would want a more power-driven bat around Juan Soto to protect him, not Alex Bregman. So I feel like Pete Alonso is better protection for Alex Bregman, even if Alex Bregman is the better overall player. Because again, what it comes down to is fit. I think that Alonso is the better fit. Now, once again, seeing what Alonso has done in New York, I also value that. Bregman's been in Houston with this great organization that has had some fishy stuff going on in a phenomenal, exceptional hitter's ballpark. That is like, oh my God, it's lovely. So coming to Citi Field is a different aspect there right away. Meanwhile, we've seen what Pete can do in Citi Field. So, that's something right there. If I'm just comparing the two, I feel like Alonso is just the much safer bet. I don't need to try to do anything crazy here. Now, if the Mets already signed Alonso and they want to get Bregman, and then really what it comes down to is that Vientos is my DH instead of Starling Marte, sure. I'd rather have Alex Bregman with better defense and Vientos at DH, and Vientos as a way better bat than Marte at DH. That makes the team better. I've also heard this idea of like maybe Bregman plays second. Maybe, but again, I don't like Bregman playing second, especially if we don't have Alonso. That just doesn't. That's just not. Again, why would you sign him to then put him out of position and you still have Vientos at third? Like, no matter what, you're still just compromised. It's just not the greatest fit. And if it was up to me, this is my last big thing, is that if I could have, like, you gave me two options. Say option A is Pete and Bregman. Option B is Pete and another starting pitcher, whether that is a Castillo or a Pablo Lopez, or take your pick. I like option B much better. I'd rather Alonso and another big-time pitcher instead of Alonso and Bregman or Alonso and another hitter. Like, a $20 million contract in addition to Alonso, I want it to be a starting pitcher and not a hitter. I just feel like that is what this current Mets team should be valuing right now more.
Yeah, definitely. We already know that, Pete Alonso still, that hurdle needs to be crossed. Obviously, it's leaning towards the Mets getting him. But, Andrew, we, for multiple years now, you and me have been very, very public about Alex Bregman. I don't want to like really spoil anything before I get onto any type of rant, but we've kind of talked about him more of being more of the product and not the solution when looking at it from Houston. We talked about it a little bit. He was on our free agents to avoid list for multiple reasons. Then the whole mindset, of course, of how he fits into the Mets formula now with Soto here. I don't know if you want to just throw me under the bus like you usually do, but I think it is definitely something to be said. And I do have tons of notes here that I do want to get into, because we do have a decent amount of people watching us on Twitter. And if I am yelling at you, I'm sorry. You're just going to have to end up in the crosshairs. But I think you already know what direction I'm going in. But Andrew, if you'd like to, I don't know, like give a little preview before I, explode. So what are you thinking, buddy? Alex Bregman? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, again, we talked about it in a video. Again, going into the off season, and again, I've said it even when when he was popping off in 2019. I always said Nolan Arenado was better, Jose Ramirez was better. I was never a Bregman guy. And then we obviously see how the off season's going. And I guess this is kind of how I'm looking at it. It's the same thing how we're looking at in the pitching scenario. I'm being opportunistic. I'm not locking this dude up 6 years. I'm saying if we bring and this is the caveat. Alonso needs to be brought back because I've made it clear, like Frank, we've all made it clear. He is not, I'm not, if I'm picking one, I'm picking Alonso, like I said, just for the pure power, whatever. The only way I want him on this roster if Alonso's brought back. Because, and this is maybe again, like you say, oh, the MLB the show, but it's also to the extent of I'm trying to win a World Series now. I don't really give a shit about being the Rays and the Brewers of like constant success. Like, no, I want to win a championship. I don't really care about all these National League Championship appearances or playoff appearances. If we don't win the ring, I really don't give a shit. Look at the lineups you have to beat. If you can get Bregman on, again, we keep saying the Bellinger type deal, but again, nothing. Again, I'm not giving him 6 years. So that's again, it's really more of a no. But again, like we talk about with the starting pitching, if we can be opportunistic, and let's say, and like we said in the video, he doesn't have to be a leading offensive bat, because if he's brought in with Alonso, he would have to be the 5th or 6th most offensive productive guy, because you would obviously go Lindor, Soto, Alonso. If you expect Vientos, you could say Brandon Nimmo, and then I need Alex Bregman. Then I at least can like it, but it's all cost effective and always being opportunistic. If he's looking for that 6-year deal, he's going to Canada and going enjoying the fake bacon. Have fun, because they're stupid and they'll give you the term. But if that doesn't happen, and we're sitting here at the end of February, and you can get him on a Bellinger type deal, and you can put Mark Vientos. Yes, we obviously, I think once you move him to first base, there's no longer moving him, but I'm not even to that extent. And Stearns has always been about putting guys in the right position. What is Mark Vientos' best tool? Is in the batter's box. So, and what is the run prevention that we've been fucking jammed down our throats of run prevention? You can get best of both worlds. Mark Vientos is put at the DH where he should be, and especially now with Jock Peterson gone, which again we were clamoring for him to be the DH. Everyone's like, "Go bring Jesse Winker back." If you're telling me, would I rather have a Winker Marte platoon or just have Mark Vientos be my everyday DH? I'll take that and having Alex Bregman again on a opportunistic deal. But again, it's not. If that doesn't happen, there's no interest here. But again, it would have to be with Alonso and a deal that he can get out again, or it's like a 2 plus an option. Like, again, and that's probably not realistic, but again, if he holds out similar to Pete Alonso, we're getting to spring training, I think you could maybe be getting that Bellinger type deal. But again, I'm not giving term. I'm not giving crazy AV. But again, if you're being opportunistic and you're trying to win a World Series this season, Alex Bregman at third base and Mark Vientos at DH is a lot better than a Jesse Winker, DJ Stewart, Jesse Winker, Starling Marte DH platoon with Mark Vientos defensively at third base. Again, I don't love Alex Bregman, but again, at a right price, you can like anybody.
Yeah.
I'll just say one more thing about Bregman before you go, Carson. Kind of similar to the Alonso thing, but it's like I wonder where the suitors are, because it's like one thing to keep in mind is the Astros said we thought we had Arenado, and Arenado rejected the offer. He vetoed the trade. So it's like the Astros already said, like, listen, we don't want to keep Bregman. We just want to get Arenado. We don't want to give in to what Bregman's asking price is. And it's kind of been said with Alonso, but it's like, okay, well, who is? I feel like that's kind of one of the things too. It's like, because again, it's like, I don't know. I feel like maybe when one of Alonso signs, then Bregman and Burns follow, or like one of the three. I feel like those are like the three guys where it's kind of holding everything up. But because you feel like maybe like one goes to Toronto, one goes to the Giants, and then maybe someone comes to the Mets. And Alonso's not going to Toronto. That's not happening. So I don't factor. I'm talking more so like maybe Burns goes to Toronto. But yeah. I'm just kind of curious, like, I feel like it's those three, and it's like how many suitors.
This is a sidetrack here, but this is for Andrew, because he's been very focused this stream, so I'll give it to him. Could you imagine Pete going to Toronto and learning how to ice skate. That would be funny. I'm
Oh
not
my-
sure. Just,
Oh,
and then
God,
think about it,
stop.
and you get a polar bear in
Stop.
Canada. It makes sense. There you go. Fits
Stop.
perfectly. And
Anyways,
Vlad goes back to third
Frank?
base. But try to go back. There you go.
sorry, that was offensive. I'm sorry if anybody got offended by that. I'm sorry. Frank?
Yeah, no, I mean, just totally sidetracked me. So thank you.
Sorry.
No, but
Sorry.
I'm just curious. Like, it's one of those things too where the Mets are going to wait that out though. Like, if the Mets did have legitimate interest in Bregman, again, like Andrew, they're going to be opportunistic. So I think with all three of these guys that I'm mentioning, between Alonso, Bregman, Burns, if things fall the right way and it comes to the Mets' terms, they could do any of the three. Maybe two of like Alonso and Bregman. Like, I mean, that could happen. I don't think that's going to happen. I think it's a little more realistic. They go Alonso, maybe trade market for a pitcher, and then fill a bullpen and maybe get DH like a Winker or some of these other guys mentioned like Josh Bell. Like those 1-year deals for like a DH or like a decent AAV. I think that's fine. But also factor in, where does Santander end up? Where does Teoscar Hernandez end up? So it's still like these other guys who are going to be getting multi-year deals, or at least looking for multi-year deals, who still all remain unsigned. So I feel like there still is some more things to be determined. So right now you're just kind of saying, okay, we got everybody for the price that we had in mind. Maybe Soto more than we wanted, but we still got it done. But everything else, the Mets have not overpaid for anyone else other than Soto right now. Everything else has been good value, very good value. So they're just trying to keep that philosophy going forward.
Yeah. Here's how I kind of look at this, of course, kind of tailing off of what Andrew said, of course, with, I want to win a World Series now. Again, when it comes to, Bregman or whatever, again, it still needs to be the right fit. Again, you got Soto here for 15 years. So it's not like, oh, well, if we missed our opportunity, you get one shot, this is it. It's not like 2022 where it's like win now or win never or you're done and you're in financial ruin. It's not like that. That's not how I look at it. Now, let's get into my opinion on Alex Bregman. Here's the deal. This more goes out to the people I see on Twitter, the fantasy baseball winners, the ones who know how to build a team on MLB The Show. Because every time I see on Twitter, if we get Alonso and Bregman, we are set. No, okay, first of all, not really. Second of all, I'm taking this a step further. So if you disagree with me and you want to get very, very aggressive and you want to kill me, by all means. And if I end up being wrong about this in the future, 100% go after me. You have 100% permission for it. Okay? I'm just letting everybody know in the stream. We good? We good. Okay. As for Alex Bregman, okay? This is genuinely the stupidest thing the Mets could possibly do in-house, out-of-house, on this free agent market. Let's look at the facts here and look at every single possible scenario because I have plenty of them. Alex Bregman is going to be going into a 31-year-old season, okay? Definitely a pivotal age in a player's career. Does he still have game left? Absolutely. The Mets don't have a need at third base, right? We know that there are plenty of infielders that possibly could be the third baseman. You never know. I understand you don't want to bank on a prospect. You want to win now. You want to build a fantasy team. I get it. Mark Vientos has done enough to be the starting third baseman next year. And I understand that everybody wants to jump to the conclusion of Mark Vientos not being a good defensive third baseman, which is true. But overall, I'd say that the arm kind of makes up for it for where it can be somewhat neutral, and he could probably get better. He's 25 years old. There's no reason to move him to DH. There's a reason why I don't want to see him play DH and why I never wanted to see him as the number one DH option when, in 2022, they should have just got somebody else. And it wasn't going to just be Mark Vientos to be that type of savior. The reason why I say that is Mark Vientos needs to play a position in order to progress in his career. He is 25 years old, and even though he's not great at third base, he has earned the right to play third base not to mention the development of the kid. Okay? Now, obviously, it's not a strength of his. Obviously, there's some similarities to J.D. Davis. Well, let me bring in some similarities even more to J.D. Davis. When the Mets had J.D. Davis playing third base every single day in 2019, obviously juice balls, different situation. Obviously, J.D. Davis is not as good in overall offensive tools compared to Mark Vientos. But when Mark Vientos was able to play third base every day, that's when he finally came into his own as a major league hitter. He was playing every single day. That was obviously more of the help of Beatty being ass. But when it came to overall Mark Vientos, when he came up here, they gave him the full-on playing time. They believed in him. Okay? If you move him to DH, it's going to be very, very similar. Not very, there's still other factors, but it's going to be very, very similar to what happened with J.D. Davis, where they basically exiled him and said, we don't believe in you. Even though you're a young guy and maybe there's a sophomore slump, you never know. And, this is the upswing of your prime. You're 25 years old. This is the type of J.D. Davis trap. Now, again, you never know. You don't know. Maybe he does have a sophomore slump playing third base. You never know. But being allowed to play a position, use all of his tools, be out there 24/7 every single day, stay healthy. Obviously, he's not there to do it, but again, he has room to improve. He was able to relax at the plate as well, because we saw some times where he was overmatched, but he was able to get those good results. 25-year-old DH, to be honest, is a stupid concept, in my opinion. Again, you never know. Mark Vientos, even though he doesn't move the best or whatever, he's not the best defender, he's still young enough as to where he can play that position. We haven't seen Rafael Devers be moved off of third base yet, even though maybe it does happen in this free agency, but he's going into his 30s. Mark Vientos is not 30. Rafael Devers is not a great defensive third baseman, and I would say that in overall offensive production, Mark Vientos is getting to that trajectory of Rafael Devers. Let's just say that if he gets a full season and continues to grow as a player. Once again, okay. Now, as for Bregman being an addition with Alonso, it is also ridiculous. Even if you bring in Pete Alonso and you have Bregman in as the add-on, you're going to have a right-handed heavy left lineup that we had last year that gets bullied by secondary stuff. And not to mention, from what we saw from the product of what he is in Houston, mediocre batted ball data. It's not the same hitter from 2019, which the year that the Astros were cheating, the juice balls, and he will never come close to that ever again going into his 30s. Now, when you look at this overall lineup, they need left-handed bats. Pete Alonso can come back because it's pretty much just adding in, it's the net zero. It's adding in what you had last year. So it's the same situation of what you have to change. Obviously, Jock Peterson being off of the market, I would more have preferred him, but Winker is still available as well. I'd love to bring Winker back. But as for the overall DH situation, Mark Vientos belongs at third base. Again, in that ballpark, like you guys have touched up as well, and in that lineup, he was in a really good scenario there. Again, at Citi Field, which is less of a hitter's ballpark, with the mediocre batted ball data that he has, I feel like just overall he's going to be a contact hitter if he's not just a massive dead pull hitter, which will probably end up bringing down his plate discipline, which is one of his greatest strength tools. Now, also, another point. The Mets also have too many infield prospects right now, which, again, you never know in regards to that. You never know where they're going to play. Maybe they get traded. They have way too many to not at least give them a shot. You can't have an all-star at every single position, obviously, but to commit 8 years, maybe 7 or 8 years, maybe $200 million of what we've heard what he's asking for, again, it's not worth it. Now, all of this talk about him moving to second base so Vientos can play third base. It'd be fine. All right. That's also nonsense as well. His offense does not merit a non-positional payday. When we're talking about prolific bats, Alex Bregman is not that type of prolific bat. You guys have already said that he isn't. You agree with me in that sense. Okay. And let's talk about, some non-positional paydays. Marcus Semien, who's healthy all the time, one of the best second basemen in all of baseball now. He was a shortstop. Got shortstop-ish money to play second base. Remember when we had Carlos Correa here? He got shortstop money to play third base. When it comes to prolific offensive players, the overall value that they provide, Semien obviously a little bit older in that sense, which is why he's not getting paid as much. Trevor Story as well. When it comes to Carlos Correa and it comes to Marcus Semien, big playoff performers, of course, are their offense anywhere near close to Alex Bregman? I wouldn't say so. Overall batted ball data, overall power, overall versatility.
Xander Bogaerts, another one.
Xander Bogaerts as well. Positionless baseball. Is Alex Bregman worth that? No, he's not. Now, also at second base, we have a guy named Jeff McNeil, who we all know how I feel about. But when it comes to Jeff McNeil, if you were to end up getting rid of him for Bregman to play second base, you are going to have to end up trading him, and you're going to have to cover part of that contract for 2 more years. So in the first 2 years of that Bregman contract, you are going to be replacing an overpaid second baseman with another overpaid second baseman. Ridiculous. Not to mention, again, why I think this is a smokescreen. The draft pick compensation, I feel like they're hesitant to give up. Again, you give up a draft pick for a guy like Juan Soto, who is a generational type of talent and is going to be great for years. When you're talking about Alex Bregman, is he 26 years old? No, he is not. Is he as prolific bat as Juan Soto? No, he is not. Is he as good of a player as Juan Soto overall? Probably not. Again, do I think that Bregman is a good player? Sure, he's a good player. But is it really worth it to give him $200 million over 8 years because he was an all-star at one point? He's won the World Series on a fantastic team. And then also Marcus Semien, who is also in that MVP race with him. He's been more prolific than him recently since that 2019 year with the juice balls and with him cheating and everything. Right-handed heavy lineup. They need left-handed hitters. To me, it just doesn't look like a fit. Again, for me right now, yes, they have the financial flexibility to do it. I think it just isn't a good fit for the Mets. And I think you guys agree with that. I believe that bringing in Pete Alonso, letting Mark Vientos continue to get his well-deserved reps at third base is the way to go. Wait out what happens with Ronnie Mauricio if he's struggling or whatever. Again, I've kind of accepted that one of McNeil or Marte are going to be here next year. But when it comes to fantasy baseball, Stearns is not going to look at it in that sense, that way. He's going to look at it as a good fit. And if you believe that Alex Bregman is the number one piece to put you over the top because he's won a World Series before, I don't know what to tell you. All right? It's just not a good investment. Is Pete not a good investment either long-term, as we've talked about it? Sure, he's also a shitty investment. But in overall environment, in overall tools, and overall things that this lineup needs, Pete Alonso is a better fit. They need power protection for Soto. They need to deepen the lineup. They need a cleanup hitter right now. Because, again, you don't know what's going to happen with Mark Vientos. He's again, you still need to let him continue to progress in his career because there's still things he's got to work on. So him being the power protection for Soto, because we've seen him hit home runs before, not as legitimate as what Pete Alonso can provide. So we'll see what happens there. I just don't see it as a good fit. Now, I turned off the window that says the live chat, okay? I see 34 unread messages on my screen. If you want to tear me apart, go ahead. I'm not saying that Pete Alonso is better than Alex Bregman, but he's a better fit on this team for what they need. But again, what the hell do I know? I called Pete Alonso fat earlier on in this show. So who knows? Anyways, anything else that you guys would like to add? I don't see this as a good fit. I don't think it is a good add-on. There's tons of reasons as to why, like I just listed. It just doesn't make any sense. To be honest, it's not something that it's like, oh, it's not my preference. I think it's actually borderline stupid to bring in somebody like Alex Bregman. Sorry. Again, I'm sure he's a great player on the baseball card. He's had a great career. 31-year-old third baseman, giving him a 7 to 8 year deal. I ain't doing that. I'm not doing that. And to be honest, short term on something that maybe Matt Chapman got later on in the offseason last year, because it's a similar thing. But when it comes to Alex Bregman, I don't even think he's Matt Chapman. Again, it's more of just he's a product of a really good team. All right. He's a good player, but he's a product of a really, really good team for a while. Once you take him out of there, again, it's just not going to be the bang for your buck that you think it's going to be, because he was an all-star once and he had a great year. Again, looking at it at face value, it maybe looks like a really good fit because Mark Vientos can't play defense. But for a defensive upgrade of overall impact to the lineup for $200 million, that's ridiculous.
So, two things. Number one, I feel like Bregman is a guy who, because of his villain status with the Yankees, he has a quick trigger in New York, even for Met fans, where it's like I've talked about, but if a guy gets acquired by the Mets, doesn't do well to begin with, and gets booed, how do they respond to that? I'm always just very fascinated. And if you're going to spend $200 million to upgrade your defense at third base, why don't you just trade for Nolan Arenado, who's a better defender at a much more reasonable cost? It's only going to be a couple of years.
I mean, this is how I understand it's all about I'd rather have the better player because this is my fantasy baseball team. I get that view of everything. But when it comes to Pete, compared to Bregman, he's a better fit. He's not the better player. Don't get us twisted there. He's not the better overall player. Like we have said, he's a one-dimensional type of player. He's a one-way first baseman. Contact and power.
But we need that dimension.
But we do need that dimension because we brought in Juan Soto. Again, you can twist our words any way that you want. I'd be sure to explain it if you don't understand it in any way. But for those of you who are saying, Alonso and Bregman, this is a great combination, I think it's stupid. I just don't see it as a really good fit for the Mets. Maybe it is a really good fit for a team like the Phillies that want to get rid of Alec Boehm. They don't like Alec Boehm anymore. It's a hitter's ballpark. They need a little bit more right-handed hitters. You never know. Again. All right. Yeah. All right. You're going. Ken, you got to go. I'm sorry. This is like you're taking this way too personally. All right. Anyways, when it comes to other things that we have looked at, there is something that I do want to touch up before we end it off here. There was a report that went out. I don't know who did report it, but I just jotted it down real quick towards the end of prepping for the stream. There were some reports that talked about the Mets still dabbling in the outfield market on the free agent market. Now, I think that there's a few different things you can look at from this standpoint, and these are the three possibilities that I'm looking at, okay? One, I think that maybe it was looked at as something such as, we did get a report from John Heyman saying that the Mets were in on the Jock Peterson market. Jock Peterson is not really considered an outfielder right now, but he could play the outfield if you want for him to exist in left field. Not something that you recommend. Maybe that's the main reason why they're saying dabbling in that sense. Could it be a reunion with Jesse Winker? That's also a possibility in the DH sense. And then maybe as a fifth outfielder because they're looking about maybe moving on from Starling Marte. Could we go even further and say maybe this is about Teoscar Hernandez or Anthony Santander? Teoscar, again, right-handed bat. I don't know if that's that big of a fit, but again, I would not be complaining because he's definitely more prolific than somebody like Alex Bregman. When it comes to the overall market, first of all, before I go to you guys about this, of possibilities, hearing that the Mets were in on Jock Peterson, didn't end up getting him, that hurts my soul. You know how I feel about Jock Peterson. I'm sure you guys feel about Jock Peterson near similar to me. We know how we feel here. I've been begging for him for, 4 or 5 years. And still have yet to, but at least Stearns looked at him, right? Great minds think alike, I guess. Stearns, my homie. Let's just say that. He's got aura to him. Andrew, I'll go to you. Is it possible? Is it possible that they're going in an elevated market? Are they looking to improve the depth? I don't know what direction this could be in. Is it the trade market? Maybe. I don't know. What are you looking at in terms of this? Does it seem like just a smoke screen to get the price up for some of these outfielders? I mean, I don't know what it could mean, but it was a report, and we will touch on it.
Yeah, I mean, again, you have Jesse Winker. I mean, that's probably the obvious guy. But again, like we've continued to say, they're going to be opportunistic. If you can see Santander at, let's say, a Christian Walker deal, I think they'd be in that. I think Teo, they maybe be in that conversation. Again, when you have the FU money that we have more money than anybody. Sorry, we got more money. So, yeah, and if Steve Cohen says, you know what, woke up after Christmas, I didn't get a good Christmas present, sign Santander. He can do that. He wants Teo. He can get he has the ability. And like we've said, David Stearns is going to look around and say, okay, what's the market value? Okay, hey, this guy is less than what we think. Okay, we can pivot that way. Again, like Santander, Teo, Tyler O'Neill, obviously off the board, Jock off the board. So there's still a couple of guys. Jerks and Profar still hanging around. If you want kind of a versatile piece, he's still hanging around. I wouldn't want him, but again, switch hitting bat gives you a little positional versatility. He's around there. He's still out there. Like there's still a lot of quality players out there. And again, we're going into the new year. We're starting to see we're getting to that point of like, okay, now guys, I think the reliever market's going to happen after Christmas. I think it always does. You'll see a vast number of relievers. Same thing with the outfields. Guys want to get their spots. There was a certain team that I thought would look perfect for Anthony Santander. That they made a nice trade, and I would still expect them to add another outfielder. That they're not going to spend it. When you have again the mid-market teams not spending, that's where the big boys can kind of just say, okay, hey, this guy's a little below market value and pounce. And that's kind of what it is. And if you're asking me, an outfield is going to probably be Winker. And, am I fine with that? Sure. I mean, again, like we said, I would have preferred the guy who's, a better version of Jesse Winker. But again, add some swag, add some dirtbag energy. It's fine. Like, it's great. And if he fit in well, add some swag, cool. But again, I think, like we said, they're going to be opportunistic. And if they see a guy that they identify below market value, they're going to pounce. So that could be, again, Profar. It could be Peterson, Winker. It could be anybody. And I think that's just kind of the thing. If we're going to wait and see, the longer this waits at, everybody gets cheaper, and then you pounce.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like when you're talking about outfield, you're really talking about DH, really. I mean, when you look at the Mets, you have Nemo in one outfield spot, and you have Juan Soto in outfield spot. And again, like we talked about with fit, Jose Siri is a good fit with the guys who are in the corners, not being the greatest defensively. Even though Jose Siri may not be a great player, there's other players that are better than him. Jurickson Profar is a better player than Jose Siri. But again, Siri's a very good fit for this particular Mets team, so I'm fine with that. But as I've said, they could use a DH. Starting Marte, I've said a million times, not making a home run since June. That's a problem. If you're going to be a DH, you need to be able to hit home runs. So I agree with Andrew with the Jesse Winker thing. I'll just add on the big piece for me. How we did in the postseason, like that was huge. I mean, you're a team now that expectations are different. You know, you want to be in the postseason every single year. You want guys that could show up in the big moments. And Jesse Winker did that big time. And I felt, and we all kind of felt, didn't get enough playing time in the postseason to begin with. And he was playing so well. We were like, why is JD Martinez still getting starts? Let Winker play. He's the better option. Pinch hit Jesse Winker. Where's Winker? Like we kept saying, and this was with a bad back even. The guy was still performing really, really well on the biggest stage. So for me, I'm totally fine with bringing back Jesse Winker. But I mean, you said a magic name there. If somehow, some way the market shakes the right way and they end up with a Teoscar Hernandez, I'd be quite happy if that happened. I don't think that's going to happen, but boy, would I be really, really happy if they got a Teoscar Hernandez. Or obviously Santander, we all love. We're all in agreement there. So we'll see. I mean, I'm just glad that they're still looking at it. You know, I mean, not that, oh, we got Soto, now we're just looking at Alonso and whatever else. They're saying, no, we still want to upgrade the DH position, and they're not just like, oh, we have Marte, we're fine. At least they're not taking that approach. So that makes me feel very encouraged about what's to come.
Yeah. I mean, you never know. Again, one thing I will say, listen, Matt Ibiabide is coming in here, one of our good friends in the Mets community. He does a show, Till Mets Do His Part. If you guys did not know, I think they ended about like a half hour into our show. So make sure to go check them out, saying that I've definitely said, I mean, he wrecks shit. I mean, he's a shit wrecker. I mean, what can I say? Jock Peterson is definitely an impact bat. Now, I did look at the contract he just got because I think it was so late when it was announced that Jock went to the Rangers that I did not see the contract information, or maybe I just must have missed it. He got 2 years, $37 million, player option in year 2, which he most likely will end up taking. Listen, if it meant that we had Pete Alonso here and, you know, for the next few years, I probably would have matched it. I'm not going to lie. I would have done it as a left-handed bat need in the lineup. Again, it's all about need if it's a good fit and not if it's just, oh, it's a good player. He has a good MLB The Show card. If you're looking at it from that perspective, probably would have been something that I would have done. But again, that's the DH position. It's not smart. It isn't. But if that's like the next thing to put you over the top to make the lineup deep, I would have gone a little bit of the extra mile. But Jay-Z coming in here, the one who I believe was married to Beyonce at one point, saying, bring Winky back on a 1-year deal, which I'm definitely open to. Again, that's a left-handed bat. I feel like they need to add that, of course. I do think that there's a right-handed bat that they need to get rid of as well this offseason. And there's a left-handed bat that they also need to get rid of, but he's not going anywhere. He has a long-time contract. In fact, he is overtaking Drew Smith for the lifetime contract for the New York Mets. We all know who I'm talking about. But obviously, there's still plenty of moves that are left to be made, of course. In with this lineup, it can't just be Pete Alonso, in my opinion. I don't want it to be Bregman because, again, I think that Mark Vientos has earned the third base position. Again, Teoscar Hernandez is another one that you brought up. But again, I just think that you still run into the same issue of a right-handed hitter that gets bullied by breaking stuff. And it's not the fact that, like, oh, his pitch recognition's not great or anything, or he chases or whatever. I just don't think it's protected well in this right-handed heavy lineup. Like, again, it's all about the fit, not who's the player.
Yeah, but Teoscar Hernandez and JD Martinez, even though they're both right-handed hitters, Teoscar actually does good stuff. Like, and Marte, like, he actually is good. That's the difference. They may both swing at outside pitches, but at least Teoscar does good things. Those guys just were not good
in this lineup. I'm just talking about it as a fit. I just don't see it as the best fit. Again, if you get Teoscar, I'm not going to be like, oh, this is the franchise breaking move. We're done here. Steve Cohen's a fraud. I'm not going to say that. But I'm saying it's like, I just don't think it's the best fit. if they go and they say it's something they could get, maybe it's a bat. But again, it's just the way that pitchers have kind of made these adjustments to get hitters out now.
Well, also
left-handed hitters, I feel like it makes a better balance.
You have to factor in too with Winker. We talked about some of the limitations that go along with that. Like, okay, left-handed starters on the mound, he might not start. Meanwhile, someone like Teoscar, although you have concerns, he plays against righties and lefties. So that's the other thing, is that you know that with Winker, maybe you have to bring in like a Grichuk to go with him, or I don't know. You know what I mean? Like that, and then that's what we talk about, like how the bench kind of shakes. Like now you have two bench positions dedicated to being DH. And then you might have Taylor in the mix. So all of a sudden your bench gets... it's just not the greatest fit overall of the bench. Like, you still don't have your backup infielder right now, unless maybe that's Acuna. But I feel like Acuna should be starting, honestly. But so, like, you know, does Iglesias factor in? That'll bringing him back. So then things get a little interesting. So I feel like we talked about just having too many DHs on the roster. Just not great for roster construction. So I feel like with Teoscar, you just kind of have everything all in one player. And someone who could make those occasional starts in the outfield. Not something he should regularly be doing, but Nimmo needs a day. Teoscar goes out there, and you're fine. Which Winker could do too, but it's not something you want to do.
That's something that I think it also factors in a little bit. Again, this is a little bit more on the other extensive side, but Jose Iglesias kind of coming into that type of move where maybe you kind of have Vientos DH occasionally against left-handed pitching. You have Winker against righties, left-handed pitching, and then Jose Iglesias is playing third occasionally. If you were to bring him back or something, bringing in some kind of utility infielder or something, but someone who could be an actual threat and not be a Luis Guillorme who basically does nothing unless he gets, you know, these little choppers into left field or whatever. That's the type of versatility that I was thinking. Gio Urshela would have been a good one for that, but he ended up going to the A's. We talked about him before. I would love to have Jose Iglesias back as well, in addition to Winker coming back. Again, like I said, Mark Vientos, maybe it's like occasionally he's DHing, but again, regularly I'd like to see him as the regular third baseman because I think he's earned that right as compared to some other guys who I don't think have. But I think if there's anything else that we can talk about, I think we're going to wrap it up here. Any of these other comments that we can bring in here, let's see. Stevie Mack talking about the Pete and Bregman situation. If they can, unless both Pete and Bregman for cheap because they became the misfit toys of free agency. Again, that it could be a thing. I don't see a fit for Bregman at all. That's just me. That's just more of the extremist level, and only time will tell if that is that a situation. But again, I'm really against a move for Alex Bregman a lot more than everybody else, of just being like, oh, this is the right price. I just don't see it. I really just don't see it as a good fit for this team. Again, I could be wrong. Not saying that Alex Bregman is a bad player. I'm just saying I just don't think it is a good fit. And again, it seems like more of a smokescreen to me because I know that Stearns sees guys as better fits and not as who is the better player and how he can form a team of average players to make a good team, or a team of good players to make a great team. We already know that's how David Stearns looks at things, of what the value they can provide of a need for this roster. So I think we're going to end things off here. For those of you in here, make sure to hit that subscribe button if you have not already. Thank you guys so much for watching. We hope you enjoyed this long conversation. We covered a lot. We will make sure to, throughout the week, have some clips out here in for the overall holidays, but most likely not much unless they make some crazy move by some craziness. I think it might slow down this week, but you never know. Again, we also have some other content that goes out throughout the week. Some stuff on TikTok, maybe. You'll see us everywhere on all those social medias. Make sure to follow us on X and on TikTok. Follow all of us individually. I will give you these guys their last final words, and then we will end this one off. Andrew, I will go to you. quite a strong working day for the both of us. Let's just say that we were here in the morning and we're here at night. So there's definitely some commitment. And between the two of us, we love to yap. So there's that.
Yeah, again, but enjoy your holidays. Be sure to eat your turkey, chicken, whatever the hell you're gonna make on Christmas Day. Watch a little basketball, watch a little football. If you get a gun, because I'm in Missouri, we give guns for Christmas. Don't shoot anybody. But besides that, the Mets, again, I don't expect any more moves for the next couple of days, so we can relax, put our feet up, hopefully not have to do a live stream at 2 in the morning. But again, it's David Stearns, and Sleepy Stearns wants to strike at the sleepy hours. So who the hell knows? But I think we can confidently say the next couple of days we can enjoy watching football, have a beverage or two, and just enjoy our next couple of days.
All right. Frank?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, happy holidays, and please, Stearns, can you do just a little earlier? I mean, come on now. I mean, it's kind of ridiculous. Like, I'll just be like, I actually woke up and I was like, wait, the Mets got Manaea? I was like, wait, how'd that happen?
Yeah.
Like, I was so confused. I just wake up.
Oh no,
and
it
I'm
dropped at like
and then,
1:45.
because I go to YouTube,
was,
I was like, oh, there was a stream and everything. I was like, wow, good job, guys. Like. You know what I mean? I just and then I listen and Cards like, we're here too. I was like, they were up at 2 a.m. Like, those silly fools. You know what I mean? Like,
don't think I wasn't tempted to call your ass. Don't
I'm
believe
thank
that.
you for not. I was like, oh my gosh, it's crazy, but that's why we do it.
And you missed it. You missed me call Roman Reigns Luis Suarez.
Oh no, I commented. If you look at the stream, I commented about that. You got me there.
Did you?
So
no, nice.
I still watched it.
I gotta look at that back.
Yeah.
All right. Don't worry. We'll play it back. Edit and post, as we say. Anyways, I think we're going to end it off here. Once again, like we said, follow all of us individually. All of the links are in the description. Yeah, we don't know when we're going to see you next time. Maybe it is next Monday for another podcast episode. Maybe it is a surprise live stream. Who knows what it is going to be, but either way, happy holidays to everyone. Enjoy your holiday. Have a safe holiday as well, because we know there's crazy people out here. Maybe there's a few crazy people in our chat. You never know. And maybe they're after you. You never know. Anyways, final thing to say, of course, let's go Mets, and we will see you guys next time, whenever that may be.